Hello, my name is Prentice Potts, and this is Module 13, Tort Liability. So, quick overview on what I'll cover in this presentation. We'll talk about what tort liability is, intentional and negligence. We'll also cover a few cases, the first case being Fallon versus Indiana Trail School, which occurred in 1986. We'll do an overview and evaluation of that. We'll do Johnson versus School District of Milliard, which occurred in 1998. We'll do Hammond versus Board of Education of Carroll County, which was in 1994, and Simonetti versus School District of Philadelphia, which occurred in 1982. And then we'll wrap it up with a conclusion. So, what is tort? Tort liability is basically a violation where one person causes damage, injury, or harm to another person. The violation may result from intentional actions, a breach of duty, as in negligence, or due to a violation of statutes. And there's two types of tort, and the first one being intentional tort, which is basically somebody did it on purpose. An intentional tort is when an individual or entity purposely engages in conduct that causes injury or damage to another. Some examples of this are assault, battery, false imprisonment, things like that. Negligence tort, which is the second one, they do not involve deliberate actions, but instead are when an individual or entity is careless and fails to provide a duty owed to another person. Some examples and common things like that are slip and falls, car accidents, and medical malpractice. Going into our first case, Fallon versus Indiana Trail School, 1986. Basically, overview of the case: a child or student suffered some damages to his spinal cord while performing a front drop off a trampoline. The school and the PE teachers were not strictly liable. The court concluded that the trampoline is not abnormally dangerous instrument and that the normal use of trampoline is not ultra hazardous activity. So my evaluation of this case, there are a ton of different pieces of equipment that PE teachers tend to use. From my experience, I've never seen a trampoline in gym class. Now, I have seen miniature trampolines, but it's hard to see a kid doing a front drop off of that. So, things in the future to maybe alleviate possible liability of this is maybe just eliminating trampolines completely out of their lesson plans for that activity. Maybe finding an alternative, but also, maybe giving kind of a review of possible things to do and not to do on that trampoline to maybe prevent students from having such injuries. Next case, Johnson versus School District of Milliard, 1998. Basically, case overruled. Nebraska Supreme Court upheld a damage award over $20,000 in a case where a first grade child was injured playing London Bridge in music class. The court basically stated that the students had just been instructed in playing the game, that the injured child was the first child to be rocked back and forth, and that the trial court's determination that a reasonable teacher would have foreseen the injury and that the injury was the proximate cause of the teacher's failure to supervise not clearly wrong. This definitely could have been prevented. More in-depth thought about creating some type of risk assessment. By creating a possible risk assessment, it could have been presented to the class if it was a low-risk activity. And basically what a risk assessment is, when I was in the military, we used to conduct risk assessments based on our missions. Possible routes that could be traveled, possible routes that couldn't be traveled. And basically the risk assessment gives us how focus we really need to be on a mission, but relating that to the classroom by creating a risk assessment for yourself on activities that you use that possibly could harm students, basically prevents any type of activity from being implemented in your classroom if it's a medium risk or you see any risk that could possibly hurt students. So that's something that definitely could have been thought of and maybe thought out a little bit more before conducting. Next case. Hammond versus Board of Education, Carroll County. This case basically happened in Maryland, and simply they were liable in damages for injuries suffered by a female football player who severely was injured during a scrimmage. The court held that the student assumed the risk of the activity and would not accept the plaintiff's argument that the board's failure to warn supported a negligence claim against the board. So the big thing I noticed in evaluating this case, students participate in all extracurricular activities under their own responsibility. In our school district, there's actually a section that it requires all parties to sign off on saying, hey, your child is playing this sport at their own will. If anything shall occur out of it, injuries, anything like that, school district, teachers, principals, coaches are not liable for what happens. And this is a debate I think that I've had in my classroom, just kind of in my family advocacy on a Wednesday, is should females be allowed to play and participate in male sports, things like that. And, my opinion on it is I definitely think they should, but I also think that they have to compete and take responsibility in sense of if something does happen, broken leg, torn ACL, separated shoulder, that they did that knowing, what the possible consequences are of playing such a physical sport. So that's just my opinion on that. Next case, Simonetti versus the School District of Philadelphia. In this case, basically what happened is a teacher was absent from her classroom. The teacher was supervising the return of students from recess and was standing at her door when one of three students who had been detained from the recess tripped and propelled a pencil into the eye of the child. The court said that the teacher could not be in two places at once. So after evaluating this case and really thinking about it and possibly relating it to situations that I've had, I've had, incidents happen where a student got bullied in my classroom because I had stepped out to use the restroom, and I had another teacher watching my class, and it's kind of similar in the fact that she couldn't be in two places at once, and the moment she peeped in on her class, the incident happened in mine. So as a teacher, there's got to be some type of procedure and more directed to this case for exiting for recess and returning from recess. The teacher could have picked a different location to monitor both students. The Kansas City School District doesn't have anything directly about where teachers should be, but they do require that a class students are always under adult supervision. Going back, thinking of my own particular incident, I probably should have thought, of a better time to utilize the restroom, whether it had been before class or after class, or just waited until my lunch period, and that probably would have prevented the incident from occurring in my own room. In conclusion, torts can occur in schools based on the cases we've just seen. We can tell it happens more than not. Having a complete understanding of tort law will allow educators and school systems to be more prepared, which will help protect kids, family, and schools. We will never be able to eliminate all tort cases, but we can minimize the incidents by making buildings safer, by adding certain protection policies that create a safer environment. As a future administrator, it is my job and goal to maintain a safe learning environment for my students and staff. It is also essential as a principal to educate your staff on ways to protect and prevent themselves from possible tort possibilities. So, looking back, I think even, like I said, on that last incident, I think as teachers, adults, administrators, we can always think things through, a lot clearer. We always take that approach of nothing will ever happen like that in my classroom, but you can never say never. So here are my resources. I had a couple more. I didn't get them on there, but this is the majority of them. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed.